So good afternoon, everyone. We are once again very pleased to welcome Satish ji to our today's Saturday
Good
talk.
afternoon, sir.
Satish Betadpur ji is our own director with JanyuTechnologies, and he's a certified financial advisor (CFA). Apart from JanyuTechnologies, he's the managing director of State Global Advisors, which is providing research and solutions to help 4.1 trillion US dollar assets under management. That is a quite huge this thing, sir. And as Satish just mentioned on his LinkedIn profile, they are bringing Wall Street research to Bangalore. That is what the aim is there, sir. So, sir, over to you from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you, everyone, for giving me this opportunity to talk this subject. I think the first talk that I had given was more about what is cryptocurrency and what are the enabling factors that we had, such as blockchain, etc. So I'll just now continue on from there, and then from the Indian perspective, what happened in the budget and how does that affect this whole area going forward. Okay, so the budget, there was one, we were all wondering whether these private cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin or Ethereum and others would be banned in India, or would it be just regulated in India? Now, neither happened. It wasn't banned. There was no regulation that also got in. What did happen was the gains on trading or gains related to any cryptocurrency was taxed at 30%, and also TDS was introduced. Now, we have a lot of crypto exchanges in India, and you may have seen ads for those with some Ranveer Singh and others. So where you can buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So we know who's buying and who's selling and what profits they have. So it's like any other trading scheme, like equity trading scheme or whatever trading scheme. So you can tax, so we know how much profit somebody's made or losses, and you can tax the gain. So that's what the finance minister finally did, that if you're making money on trading of these cryptos, you'll have to pay a tax of 30% on the profit. So they did not do anything with regards to regulation, neither did they ban, but they just said, look, we will tax you for any gains you have, and you cannot offset any losses if you have on your crypto. So it's like a one-way only. So usually in stock market trading, equity trading, if you have losses, you can offset it against future gains, or if it's a long-term capital loss, then you can offset against long-term capital gain in some other asset. So here there was none of that. So that was what the budget came out with. Now, in one sense, they gave legitimacy to the crypto market. In another sense, they kept the door open for future necessary banning of this whole thing. Now, personal opinion is it shouldn't ban anything. This is like if people want to gamble, and let's treat them like adults. If they lose money, that's their headache, and if they make money, then we get capital gains tax, and that will help the treasury. So I think looking at it, it was not a bad way of going forward. Now, the Chinese have taken an opposite route. They've banned any trading of crypto, and so all of that goes underground, and it'll happen in dark webs and stuff like that. We don't have any of those kind of situation here. What next? We did not endorse the crypto, neither did we ban crypto. So what did the finance minister say? She said she will introduce in the next couple of years something called CBDC. That's central bank digital currency. So instead of you going and buying private digital currency, there are any number of them, the Bitcoin being the most popular, we will have our own digital currency, possibly called e-rupee. So Sweden has e-krona, China has e-yuan, and so those are the two big ones that have their own central bank digital currency. We will also have our own central bank digital currency probably called e-rupee. What does that mean? Can I make money on e-rupee like I make money on Bitcoin, or can I lose money? No, it's not. You cannot do it because this is not a speculative instrument. It's like any other regular rupee currency. It's a fiat currency, meaning it's backed by the government, and therefore your 1 rupee is equal to 1 e-rupee. So it's a different form. Instead of paper, it is digitally available in a wallet that you need to create online. So you create a wallet online, which is probably using blockchain technology, and you you will store your e-rupee there, which is equivalent to keeping money in your wallet or keeping money in your under the mattress. Now, there's a big difference versus keeping money in a bank. Okay, we'll get to that. Now, the central CBDC or e-rupee, let's say your salary account goes straight into this digital wallet. Now, what does that mean? That means that you don't need a bank anymore to disintermediate this currency transaction. So RBI doesn't need to print any money. They just need to keep the accounts on an electronic ledger and transfer that money. Let's hypothetically assume it's your salary account, or it could be also gain from somewhere. So that amount comes into your account and it's debited from somebody else's account who has to pay you. Let's say Janu is paying their employees from Janu's account, or somewhere else where you make the income. It goes directly into your digital account. Now, in this whole thing, all of this is happening electronically, just like it would happen today electronically, but there is no bank present there. In this digital currency, the need for a bank for simple transaction like moving money from one person to another, you don't need the bank, and it can happen instantaneously. So even today, RTGS is almost instantaneous, but it's still, there can be some delay, some lag. You still need to fill out some forms, etc., etc. Here, it can be more seamless, especially money transfers to global centers. You want to transfer big chunks of money from your company account to buy something overseas. These transactions can happen through our digital currencies in a very seamless manner without getting involved with banks, right? Because you have the money in your own wallet and it's just going. You need the bank for when you need to borrow money, etc. Of course, you need banks. Now, the other thing about digital currency, as opposed to Bitcoin, digital currency can give you interest. Now, Bitcoins don't give you interest. Bitcoin, other private cryptocurrencies don't give you any interest, right? That just you buy a Bitcoin, you have it, it appreciates or depreciates, whatever. That's how you kind of speculate and make money. Here with e-rupee digital currency, you can kind of earn interest the way you would have earned interest by keeping money in a bank. But it will be even more safe because it will be with the central bank. So RBI, so it's the credit of RBI, which is Government of India backed. So you don't have to worry about a bank going belly up or what all of that if you're keeping a e-rupee in your wallet. Right, so that's a big advantage of having a CBDC. CBDCs itself is not such a evolutionary thought. Think of really old ages when kings were giving gold coins and stuff, right? So we didn't have a bank then. It was pieces of gold that was being transferred, carrying that as a value, store of value, and you were kind of using that. So in some sense, it's back to those days, but not quite. Now it's much more efficient because it's digital and it's faster. So the key thing is less use of a bank for normal transactions, or no use of a bank for normal transactions, right? And it becomes much more efficient. And so that's the big advantage that we have here. Now, so what does that mean for banks? Now, banks have it. I know we have a fantastic banker in our midst, so I'm not going to say I'm an expert banker, but one thing that we know in banks, people who keep money in savings account are net losers, in the sense, you need money in savings account because you need, maybe need urgent money, but sometimes you forget about it. Maybe we should have been keeping it in an FD, which gets you better in earnings. But for banks, the more money there is in a savings account or current account savings account, CASA as they say it, the better it is for them, because the amount they need to give out is less than the amount that they earn on that CASA money. So now there is a risk that the CASA that the banks have may drop precipitously, and in which case, banks would have to take more risk to make their net interest margins. So there is that ramification of the CBDC. If it really takes off, how would the banks react? And what, this is dynamic. I mean, this is they could come up with something else to make themselves more profitable. But as it stands today, there are certain disadvantages for banks. Now, I'm sure banks can think of other ways and ideas of making themselves more profitable with the e-rupee situation. So I'll go back to one other in this central bank currencies, digital currencies. Almost every country now is looking into this. Some countries are more advanced in this, but every country is trying to introduce this. So it's not just us. We are, also including a part of this wave of central banks that wants to introduce it. I think it's just an efficiency gain across the board to have this. Now, again, even in this, they'll have a couple of varieties of it. One is for retail usage, and one is for wholesale usage. Retail usage is people like you and me trying to use central bank digital currency for transactions. Similar to where we kind of use currently Google Pay or Paytm, but that comes out of your bank. You have to have a bank where the money comes out of that. Whereas if you're using a retail central bank digital currency, it comes out of your wallet, and that whole wallet is held by the government. And similarly for wholesale will be probably for companies who want to use money transfers across the globe, and that system will be more efficient.
Can you just briefly tell about what is a cryptocurrency, how it is being made?
Bitcoin basically was something like that 10 years, maybe 11, 12 years ago, when one guy wrote this code, and obviously it's one technologically extremely sophisticated piece of code, where he said, I will only create 21,000 Bitcoins. Limited number of Bitcoins will only be allowed to be mined. Mined in the sense you run this program for multiple days or whatever, and then one Bitcoin shows up in your wallet. Okay, so that's called mining. Initial days, you would get one or two Bitcoins a day, and then now you need to spend maybe weeks for one Bitcoin to come, or two, months before a Bitcoin shows up, and all that computing power takes a lot of energy off the grid. So now Bitcoin mining happens in countries or places where the electricity cost is low, right? So if your cost of Bitcoin is $40,000, but if you're spending $60,000 on mining because that much electricity is utilized, then it doesn't make sense to mine, right? The early days, Bitcoin used to be like $5, $10, $100, like that. It gradually moved up. Same with Ethereum. It started at like less than $1, then it kind of moved up. Now it's, $2,000, $3,000 kind of. So people, if you get a following, then people start betting on it and moving forward. So that's how these private cryptocurrencies have mushroomed. There are many now.
I have a question. The question of this cryptocurrency is for making extraordinary gains based on speculation or gamble, something like that. So when we are introducing a digital currency, it is not going to give any extraordinary gain. So is it going to serve the purpose, or is it going to be an alternative for this crypto? That is an alternate currency, but this crypto is going to give them some benefits which these digital currencies may not be able to offer. So do you think that this is anyway an alternative to crypto?
Absolutely right, sir, that there is no speculative opportunity by owning e-rupee or this digital currency. You cannot speculate, right? Because it's one e-rupee equal to one rupee for all practical purposes. It won't move wildly. It will move as much as it would move against dollar as it does today, right? Yeah. It may depreciate or appreciate. And appreciation of rupee and e-rupee will be identical based on our macroeconomic fundamentals and or our inflation versus other countries' inflation. So there is no chance of this huge moves that we have in Bitcoin. Now, the reason for Bitcoin moving up and down that much is purely speculative. There's also supply-demand features involved in it and stuff like that. Yeah. So why would somebody bring about digital currency? Main reason is it will improve efficiency of fund transfer. For a country like ours, which is underbanked, it's possible that every person in India can have a digital wallet, and the government can transfer funds directly to their digital wallet instead of using a bank. You are still using banks now, but very far away places where you have to walk miles or get to a bank, those are difficult places where banks may not be there. Sending funds to somebody's digital wallet may be a better option. This is not going to happen in the next few years. It'll take a while before the ecosystem spreads. And once it spreads, then we may be able to utilize that benefits of the efficiencies on this platform.
I wanted to ask, will the e-rupee have any dynamic with the existing cryptocurrencies or the upcoming ones, or they're going to be completely independent of each other?
So the e-rupee and Bitcoin will not have any relationship other than the relationship that exists now. Bitcoin trades at whatever value. So $40,000 converted into rupees is what one Bitcoin will be in Indian rupees. So that will be completely different. And e-rupee versus say e-krona or e-yuan will be the same as what the regular rupee versus krona, rupee versus yuan exchange rate will be. So there will not be hopefully there will not be much of an arbitrage between a e-rupee and a physical rupee. I can see a scenario where there can be arbitrage by small amounts because of the convenience factor or maybe the interest rate differentials. Maybe banks will be paying more interest rates at some point. So therefore maybe the physical rupee may be a little higher rather than but it shouldn't, because it is the same underlying currency, the same underlying issuer, which is the government of India through RBI. So both should have identical value.
Is the government planning to tax or make some charges on these transactions that happen through the Bitcoin or any other kind of cryptocurrency? Are we planning to bring it under the tax bracket somehow?
So the last tax, they've taxed the gain at 30%. So if you are on any of these exchanges and there's KYC norms on those exchanges, so people know who's made money, so they have to pay 30% tax on gains. Unfortunately, any losses can't be offset. And in addition to that, there is a TDS that's going to be levied on these transactions. So it's hypothetically possible that not only do you pay TDS at purchase, you'll end up losing the money, and which you cannot offset against any other gains. So it could be a double whammy situation for many people.
Can we have companies to make cryptocurrencies? A group of people joining and having a fintech company, they produce only cryptocurrencies.
Absolutely. You want to create a cryptocurrency, there's nothing that prevents you from doing it.
I have a question. Generally, Indian way of finance controlled by the people is saving for the future, or saving for the uncertainties. So we always used to save either in bank or in some other way or something like that. And the system had a good return for savings so far. We used to have 15% interest for the FD, and now it has come to maybe 4 or 5%. Whereas other countries, they always give very, very less interest for savings, because they would like people to use the money in the market for playing with shares or playing with investments. So, for example, in Singapore, they give only 0.5% interest for the savings account, 0.2% interest for the savings account. So everybody is forced to take out the money and do some other way of multiplying it. But ultimately, it is a very risky factor for the public. That's how all the countries, when everything fell down, we were very strong, even in financial crisis. So is this way of e-currency and this reduce? Currently, we are seeing the interest rates going down in banks for the fixed deposits. So is it indirectly mean that, say, the government wants people to come out and then recirculate the money in the market and get into the risk of handling the money and holding the money?
I'll answer this way, right? So why is interest rates coming down? There are two main reasons. One is the concept which we call as real interest rate. So real interest rate is the interest rate you get over and above inflation. So if our country is running inflation at 5-6%, you want to have at least few percentage more than that on your savings account or your FD. So you have a real interest rate, which is only, so the difference between your nominal interest rate that you get from the bank, let's say you're getting 8% and inflation is 6%, the real interest rate is 2%. So effectively, you need to have a positive real interest rate so that you can maintain your standard of living, right? If your inflation keeps dropping, the nominal interest rate also keeps dropping, so that the real interest rate that you get is still stable around, let's say, 2%. Now, in countries such as US, not in the last year has been a complete 180-degree turn in US and Europe and other places, but prior to that, inflation was negative to almost zero. There was no price increase anywhere. Japan has been running like this since 1990s, where there has been no price increase. In fact, prices keep dropping. So they have so their interest rates are very low, nominal interest rate. That is the amount you get when you go to a bank. So that the real interest rate, because if the prices are going lower, even if you get 1 or 2% interest or 0.5%, you're still having a positive real interest rate. That's what the banks aim to give you. So that is one reason why in developed countries, bank rate of interest for your savings and FDs keep going down. Now, one can argue the inflation may be going down, but there may be certain unique items for which the prices may be going up, which may not be captured in this inflation basket, as we call it. So inflation basket is some random 40-50 goods that they put, the government puts, and they monitor the prices. Now, okay, for the 40-50 basket items, they calculate it, but many times you and I may be using things that are not in that basket, for which the prices may be going up. One thing that maybe when you're trying to buy a house, prices of houses are going up, and if you keep money in an FD and earning at whatever positive real interest rate, you still won't be able to buy that house by earning from an FD. So things like that happen. So it is not that the government wants you to invest in speculative assets. It is just that you are kind of forced to, because your bank is not giving you sufficient positive real interest rate. Now, so therefore people, many people, at least in India, what have they done? They prefer to own physical assets. So people who have some extra money try to buy a second house, so that that price hike or the rent hike can keep up their standard of living, instead of keeping it in an FD or something where the rates keep coming down. Now, so because otherwise, if you go to the stock market, there may be a couple of good years and a couple of bad years. If you're young, it's okay. You have a 30-40 year time frame to earn money. But if you're close to retirement and you want to live in a good retirement, you can't speculate and lose money, even if it's temporarily. If for 5 years the market goes down, you will feel poor, and your standard of living will be, and if you're depending on that money, not feel poor, you will be poor, and your standard living deteriorates if the market goes down drastically. And even if it comes up after 5 years, it's too late for you, right? Because you need that money now, not later. So I think the reason, it's not necessarily that the government wants you to put money into speculative assets. It's the fact that we have had deflationary environment for so long that rates have declined. Now, last year, and especially in the last 2 months, inflation in the US is higher than the inflation in India, which is never unheard of. Last 2 days ago, the inflation number in the US came, it was 7.5%. And the bank savings rate there is less than 0.5%. So if you had put money in a bank today, you're down almost 8% in your standard of living, because that's how much inflation is now kicked in. And the reason inflation kicked in there is because of COVID, the government gave every family cash, and they dropped rates dramatically, interest rates, so that you could borrow freely. So what happened was the economic activity picked up dramatically. At the same time, supply chain from China was completely disrupted, because the Chinese have this philosophy of zero COVID tolerance. So they were shutting cities after cities after cities. And so your supply chain from China, where almost 80-90% of goods or of the world are coming, got impacted. So there was no supply. You have heard of chip shortage, you heard of every kind of shortage. So that automatically rose prices of goods. Inflation has picked up now. I don't know whether it will come down at some point when China comes back on stream, or now, whatever. But that's so it's not necessarily the government trying to push anybody into risky assets, like I said. So that's where we are.